Good evening, everyone. In true TKA fashion, we're going to go ahead and get started promptly at 6:30. We want to first thank you for being here this evening. We want to thank our panelists, who you're going to get to know a lot better in just a minute, for being here. And I'm just going to take a quick minute to introduce myself, my colleague, and then give a little bit of housekeeping before we start the show. So my name is Devin Herrera, and I am the Director of College Advising here, and I serve alongside Daniela Dufresne, who's right in the middle there in the pretty green top, and Miss Kelly Casey in the back. She's our administrative assistant. And so I wanted to just give you an overview of how the event is going to flow this evening. So I'll hand over the mic to the college admissions reps, who will get a chance to introduce themselves. We'll do some very basic, characteristics of schools by them just showing their hand, so you get a feel for who they are and what they're all about. And then they're going to get a chance to give just a short snapshot of their school to give you an introduction to the variety of schools that we have. Then we'll move through some scripted questions, and then we'll open up the floor to answer any questions that you have. We'll leave some time at the end of the night for you to ask any individual questions you have of them before we wrap up for the evening. So as our families and students continue to come in, I wanted to quickly just poll the audience. So I am loving the fact that there's so many students in the room. So to give our panelists a good idea as to who is here, if you are a freshman student, if you could just kindly raise your hand. All right, perfect. What about a 10th grade student? Perfect. And our upperclassmen are juniors? All right, so far the majority. And do we have any seniors who are brave enough to come after the senior retreat? Let's give them a round of applause. So good, right? So they just returned today from their senior retreat. I have heard no details, but I'm assuming others have chosen to maybe sleep instead of come. So thank you if you're a senior for being here. Now for the parents in the room, I'm curious, who has a child that is in their family that they're going through this for the first time? All right, so there's a lot of first-timers in the house. All right, and what about, is there anybody in the room that's going through this for the very last time? Perfect, yeah. And then is there anybody in the room that's going through this process with more than one child at the same time? So maybe you have twins in your home. Yeah, okay. So we're all in this together. It's a pleasure to get to work alongside your student, get to know you better as a parent and family member. And our hope is that you glean information for each individual school, but then also walk away with some different admissions tips and tricks that are going to be applicable regardless of the school that you plan to apply to. So on that note, I'm going to invite Mrs. Dufresne up so she can open us up in a word of prayer.
All right, please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you today just so grateful for the opportunity we have to gather together with professionals in the college advising field. Thank you for their time and for them being here with our families. Lord, we pray that the conversations tonight will be uplifting and encouraging, and that everyone will leave here feeling like they learned something new, and let our conversations always bring you glory. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to let you in on is we had the chance to have dinner with these folks up here, and you have a really fun group that you're going to learn from tonight. So on that particular note, I'd love for them to just take an opportunity to introduce themselves. Eddie, if you're open to starting with that introduction, please tell us who you are, the capacity that you serve in, and the name of your institution.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eddie Gansey, and I'm an assistant director with UCF Undergraduate Admissions, and I'm also alumni, so if you ever have any questions on student life, please reach out to me.
All right, good evening, everyone. I am Lieutenant Garrett Lewis. I'm the Southeast Field Admissions Counselor for the United States Naval Academy, so I handle Florida and Georgia.
My name is Brendan Maloney. I'm an admissions counselor from Taylor University, a little private Christian college in the middle of Indiana.
My name is Matilda Zamudio. I'm an admission counselor at Florida Institute of Technology. I'm currently a graduate student there as well, and I'm part of our Florida admissions team.
Wonderful. Okay, so I would now like you to join in a little activity, you guys. You're simply going to raise your hand if you are a private institution. Perfect. What if you are a Christian institution? And then whose campus is in a urban area or a city? Perfect. Who on the panel has a school that has less than 5,000 students? All right. And then who has between 5,000 and 10,000 students? Perfect. And then who on the panel has more than 50,000 students at their school? Eddie, are you all the largest in the U.S. or is there somebody else that's bigger? I can never keep track.
So sad news, we're the third largest now.
Perfect.
Texas A&M and the University of Arizona beat us out, but we're the largest in Florida, so go Knights.
Perfect. Okay. And then which of you on the panel offers more than 50 majors? Okay. Which of you requires test scores for your freshman first year in college applicants? And which of you require teacher recommendation letters? All right. Who is rolling admission? And who has set deadlines for admission? Perfect. And then who feels like they have the most interesting major on campus? All right, so this is where I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Why don't you propose your most interesting major, and then I'm going to rely on you guys to vote. All right, so what's your pitch?
So for our most popular or favorite major for me, it's going to be optics and photonics. So these are students who are going to be doing more laser and optic engineering. For those, these are students who want to work more in anything from digital chips and phones all the way to working in cameras and lenses. So it's a really popular major at the university, and we're one of only 7 universities in the country that offer it as well.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing. Now, Matilda, let's hear yours.
We offer astrobiology. We're actually, you can check NASA's website if you don't believe me. We're the only university in our country that offers it at the undergraduate level. Students are studying things like, looking for the life or potential for life on other planets. Yeah.
Okay, so on that note, I'm going to let you guys vote. Who favors UCF's unique major? And this is a friendly competition, y'all. And then who says FIT has got it in the bag? All right, perfect. She can take home the bragging rights. We don't have a prize for her. All right, so now I'd like to just have you guys tell us about your institution in about 3 minutes or less. Eddie, if you'd like to start again, tell us a little bit about UCF.
Good afternoon again. So UCF is going to be one of the public universities in the state. We are going to be one of the most affordable universities, coming in around $6,000 for the total year. In terms of our actual campus, we are going to be the largest university in the state of Florida, so we have a lot of opportunities. With that, the things that set us apart is going to be our internship opportunities and then also our actual curriculars on campus. With that, we have over 650 clubs and organizations, so both professional clubs, honor societies, and then fraternity and sorority life, of course. And then outside of that, in terms of any students looking for opportunities in engineering, hospitality, business, psychology, we are going to be one of the largest producers in the state. With that, we are #1 in the nation for hospitality management. So if anyone wants to work at Universal, Disney World, or SeaWorld, we have great connections over there. And then also, if you're looking to do anything in terms of engineering, we are founded as an engineering school to create rocket scientists for NASA. So we do have a lot of great partnerships over there as well. The only other things that I wanted to cover is in terms of our actual application. For freshman students, we are going to be early action, so apply before October 15th your senior year. And then after that October 15th, it is going to be rolling admission, so we'll make decisions all the way until May 1st. But try to get that application early with both us and then any of the Florida public universities as well. Thank you.
All right, good evening again, everyone. So as you can see, I'm in uniform. The Naval Academy is a 4-year military service academy. It's located in Annapolis, Maryland. If you've never been to Annapolis, it is a quiet, quaint, beautiful town located on the waterfront and the banks of the Severn River there in Annapolis. It is 25 miles from both Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., so very centrally located to those cities. A lot to do and a lot to see there in Maryland. Our student body is composed of about 4,000 students, and that is known as the Brigade of Midshipmen. The Brigade of Midshipmen, full of bright young students. We offer 26 majors at the Naval Academy across 3 different schools. So those schools are going to include our School of Engineering and Weapons, our School of Math and Science, and our School of Humanities and Arts. Unique to the Naval Academy, every midshipman that graduates from the Naval Academy graduates with a Bachelor of Science degree, and that is because we are a STEM-based institution, very STEM-based in our core curriculum. So that means every midshipman is going to take calculus up to calculus 3, physics up to physics 2, chemistry up to chemistry 2, and various other naval sciences and classes like that. Unique to us, you do commission as an officer in either the United States Navy or the United States Marine Corps. And we just look at that as a guaranteed job after graduation, right? And a lot of institutions can't necessarily guarantee you that. So that's 5 years that you're going to get a check two times a month, and it's a guaranteed job. There's different fields you can go into. I'm a surface warfare officer, which means I drive ships and manage a division on the ship. You can also be a submarine officer if you want to go under the water instead of be on it. You can do naval aviation, so think Top Gun. If you want to be a fighter pilot, you can do that as well. You can also be a Marine Corps officer, so there's many different things you can do at the Naval Academy, and I think the Naval Academy does a really good job of preparing its students for success, regardless of what you do.
So we are a liberal arts Christian institution in Upland, Indiana. I know you're like, Indiana? Why would I go up there? But we are right in the middle of Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. Yes, there is a lot of corn. We have about 2,000 students, and being in the middle of nowhere makes us who we are. It creates a community like none other. Students are very involved with what they do. Their dorms, their wings. Each section of the dorm or floor has a section. We call them wings. And our student life is really what defines us as far as community and activities, and there's always something going on. It's always something random, like middle of the night capture the flag, or you're going disco bowling or laser tag with your wing or your brother or sister wing. And so it's that kind of thing. But with that, our academics are also top notch. Our average GPA is 3.89, average SAT is 1,200. And with that, academics are very important, but your spiritual life is more important for us. We very much integrate faith and learning, and professors are praying with their kids in class, before class, advising sessions, counseling sessions, and it's really cool to see the relationships that are bonding with that, and also with that small community life. All the professors live within 2 minutes, basically. Some are push it to 20 if they want to get a little farther out. But I always say there's a 100% chance you'll go to a professor's house for a meal. It's just that kind of, we care about you, we love you. We have chapel 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We don't require it like a lot of Christian colleges, but we're always full. And that very much trickles into dorm life and spiritual life within campus. So it's a fun combination of strong academics, Christian character, and community life.
So Florida Tech is located in Melbourne, Florida. It's about 2 hours north of here. It's about 45 minutes south of NASA. We were actually founded the same year as NASA. Our founders are NASA engineers and physicists, because at the time there weren't any higher learning institutions in our area. We offer more than 180 different majors. We are a national doctoral granting research institutions, and our programs start from your bachelor's level degree all the way up to your doctorate level degree. We have professors that are all doing research in their fields. Research is built into every curriculum. There are over 5,000 military, government, and high-tech companies in the area that come to recruit from us. We're one of the 5 universities on the East Coast that Microsoft directly recruits from. But we're also a direct admit university. So what that is when students are applying to us, they're actually going to declare their major on their application, because we're not just reviewing them for admission to the university, we're reviewing them for admission right into their degree program. Aerospace engineering is hands down our most popular major, so if you are admitted into the aerospace engineering program, you don't have to wait until your junior year to take your first aerospace engineering class. You go right into it. And we're known as Florida's STEM university, so we have about 75% of our students are enrolled in one of our science and engineering programs. And we have programs in all the major areas of science. And students aren't just in the classroom the whole time. We have lots of labs on campus and off campus as well that students are doing work in. And you don't wait till your senior year. You start doing lab work right away. And students really become leaders in their industry. And there's lots of jobs in the area.
Thank you for that. So I think you're already quickly beginning to understand that every single school represented this evening, Service Academy included, has a little bit different flavor and attracts a little bit different student depending on what their priorities are. So that's one thing that our office does, is we work with students so they can establish their priorities. If you're a junior in this room, that's something that we just did with you this week. What are priorities that are important to you? What are priorities important to your family? And then you can see how each different school would begin to match your priorities. All right. So now for the scripted questions that I have. So the first topic is revolving college exploration. We have quite a few underclassmen and juniors in the room and a handful of seniors. So we want you to just, in your own professional opinion, answer, when is the best time to visit a college campus? Do you recommend visiting before you apply or after you receive your admission to that institution?
So I think it's always really good, because in our country, there's over 5,000 universities and colleges, so students have a lot of choices. I think it's good to start by doing some research on some universities that you're interested in, so you can narrow down your search on where you actually want to visit. I always tell students, you can definitely visit in your junior year, because your senior year is extremely busy, and that's when you're getting your applications together, especially universities that have early decision deadlines. And it's always good to meet your counselor. And if you're at a visit, I highly recommend asking, hey, is my admission counselor here? Because it's good if they remember your name and they're reviewing your application. That can go a long way. And all universities and colleges track engagement. So we know if you're coming up to us at a high school event or a college fair, or you've come to visit, and that all helps you stand out. So I always say at least in your junior year. But I mean, some universities have open house events too. And then for our seniors, we have another, in the spring of your senior year, we have special visits where we go over what your next steps are when you're admitted to finalize your enrollment.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say underclassmen, definitely your junior year, more towards second semester. Just because it's a little, for us, it's easier because we're finishing up seniors first semester. So second semester, your junior year is good. But also, once you've kind of visited through, go again in the fall to a couple of schools. Kind of either affirm a decision or make that final decision if you're beginning of your senior year as well. We offer a 24-hour, we call it 24-hour Taylor, a full weekend visit. You come in Thursday night, do a whole day Friday, and go from there. So those are also very good events to go to as well for schools. But 100% visit the schools you're interested in, because you're not going to go to a school, or it's rare to go to a school sight unseen.
Yeah. And then one thing that's common that out-of-state schools sometimes will offer, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Brendan, but sometimes they will fund students' airfare to their institution if they choose to visit. Anything to say on that, Brendan?
Sometimes it's in the form of scholarship dollars your freshman year. Yeah. So instead of just cash up front, like, hey, you're coming, okay, here's $1,000 scholarship for your first year.
Perfect. So that does kind of make it a cost-effective way to get out of state. So then you kind of referenced this, Matilda, that you are tracking who is opening those emails, who you're engaging with at the college fair. So we were with our sophomores today. We introduced the concept of rep visits, where these folks come to our campus during the school day, so students don't even need to leave campus to gain exposure. And that's something that we're hearing you all pay attention to. So if one of you could just define what demonstrated interest is, and then we'll take it one step further just to see if that applies to your institution.
Hello. Okay, perfect. Sorry. So for demonstrated interest, especially for UCF, demonstrated interest is going to be attending our open house events, our campus tours, but then also when you're actually going out to your college visits or then even open houses, actually talking with the representatives that are a part of the university for your specific area. So if you ever stop by campus for an open house, please just say, hey, my name, and then I'm from TKA, yeah. And I'll be able to let y'all know, be like, oh, I'll love to look at your application. You can always follow up. Specifically with us, the way that we actually demonstrate or review interest is going to be when you actually submit the application. Because we are rolling admissions, the earlier you submit your application, it's not only easier to get into university because you're compared with a lot less students, we also are seeing that demonstrated interest in the university, and the committee will then fight for you a little bit harder. But then on my side, when I'm actually fighting for your application to get admitted into university, I'm able to show proof that you've actually attended our events, you reached out to the university, and that you actually are very interested in it and applied earlier on with us.
Perfect. So what I'm getting in summary is there are students that apply to UCF, even with over 50,000 students, that you actually know their name and
Yep.
will advocate on their behalf.
Yep, I actually have a couple of students that followed up with me after I did a visit when I was in South Florida last year. And when it came turn to them actually being waitlisted, they reached out to me and I was able to fight for them a little bit harder than an applicant that didn't.
Perfect. So it is a personal process is what we're learning. So then, in your opinion, should a student select their college based on their academic major? So they want to know, or they know that they're going to go and study ABC major. Should they come to XYZ school?
Personally, I don't think students should choose an institution based on their major, because I know at 17 or 18, my interests definitely changed as I evolved as a person, even throughout college. You know, at 21 or 22, I was a different person than when I came in at 17 or 18. And while it's great to have dedications and passions that you think you want to go into, your interests can change, so it's always good to keep an open mind as you go in through this process. So I would say wait it out. Yep.
Perfect. And then can I dig a little bit deeper on that one? So of knowing that you attended the Naval Academy, your peers, did they also have any changes within their major? Kind of real life experience, just an insider scoop. What did that look like at the U.S. Naval Academy?
Yeah, so I've had numerous friends go into the Naval Academy with an idea. Maybe they want to do naval architecture and marine engineering as their major. And then they progress through that and they decide, well, no, maybe I don't want to do that. I actually want to try English. And I had numerous friends who wanted to do English. So their interest changed as well. I wasn't the only one who had my interest change. I went into the Naval Academy maybe thinking I wanted to do systems engineering. I came out with a quantitative economics degree. So your interest can absolutely change. Those are two very different degrees, and I wasn't the only one that happened to.
Thank you for that insight, Brendan. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to completely agree with them. You want to go. You want to go where you feel called or led, and it's nice being able to speak at a Christian high school. Go where the Lord leads you. There are many, Christian schools are very much our competition, if you will, but we love seeing kids go to Christian schools, and it becomes abundantly clear where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing as you're seeking the Lord in that respect. With the exception of maybe a few exceptions where you're like, ooh, I really like this major, and this is something that I'm hardcore fashion about. Like my niece, for example, is at Purdue University doing pharmaceuticals, and that's a very good school, and that's what she wants to do, and she's thriving there. But those are few and far between in all reality. A lot of kids very much don't know what they're majoring in and go in undecided.
And that was going to be my next question. Why don't we hear from you, though? Yes.
Okay, excellent. So with my university, since we're a directed MIT university, it is kind of important for students to know because that's the major they're going to declare on their application. But let's say a student's admitted for aerospace engineering, and before they even start classes, they're like, I want to do ocean engineering. That's fine. But what I will add is these open house events are a great opportunity to learn more about these majors and different careers. Like our open house events, you get presentations from like the academic departments, and there's a professor from each major there. So then students can go and talk to everybody and kind of get an idea of what they like. So So that's what I wanted to add to that.
Perfect. Thank you. So now we'll move into the arena of college admissions. I think we have the right people in the room to talk about that. So can you walk us through, behind the closed doors, how is an application reviewed at your institution?
So I might answer a little bit of the second part too for the next question, just so like it ties in. So for us, we have two different ways that we review applications. As of this year, we moved not only from having our rolling admissions, we also do early action. With early action, it's going to be a timeline where you apply anytime between August 1st, your senior year, all the way to October 15th. And then once you submit your test scores by November 1st, you'll get a decision by November 15th in our first wave. With that, we typically are going to review a couple of different components. The way that we actually review applications is very heavily on the actual academic curriculum. So that's either going to be your test scores and then your GPA, but also the classes that you're taking. For that, I would always recommend any accelerated courses, so any AP courses, dual enrollment, just because in terms of the application, it does weigh a lot heavily on our actual GPA, and then GPA does make up around 80% with test scores of our actual application decisions. Outside of that, if you do apply for rolling admissions, which is applying anytime after October 15th all the way to May 1st, it is going to be very similar in what we're looking for. We typically are going to be looking at your test scores, GPA. In terms of the actual essays that are on our actual application or Common App, those are totally going to be optional, but I highly recommend filling those out just because they tell the committee, such as myself, a little bit more about you outside of your academic curriculum. Outside of that, I would always suggest applying early because that's the best way to demonstrate that you're actually interested in a university. And since we are rolling admissions, we compare your application with every student that applies with you and before you. So applying a little bit earlier in the actual timeline will make it a little bit easier to get that decision, but then it will also guarantee getting a quicker decision, as we'll easily get it by November 15th if you apply in the early timeline. Outside of that, in terms of the actual application process, we review heavily on those test scores, so the GPA in high school, dual enrollment, and then also your test scores, so the SAT, ACT, and then either or the CLT. We do not have a preference like most universities in which tests you take. You just have to take one of the three tests, and since we super score, I typically recommend students applying with the scores they have on account and then submitting those additional scores after they completed those tests. But other than that, always apply early to most of the universities, especially the Florida public universities.
Can I ask one follow-up question regarding the Florida publics? So you said that you heavily rely on grades and test scores, and you referenced 80% of the application. Is that consistent with other state institutions in Florida?
It is around the board, around that percentage. I will let you know that in the state of Florida, set by the Board of Governors, most of our funding for freshman students comes from your test scores and GPAs. So most of them are going to be admitting for pretty competitive students. So most of us are looking heavily on those test scores and GPAs now.
Perfect.
We look. I mean, it's much more simple for us. I feel like. Admissions counselor looks at their kids in their area, and then it goes to, we have someone who reviews the applications, and our director of admissions goes through, and our director actually personally looks at every single application that goes through and clicks yes or no. And we are rolling admission, and by the time the application process is complete, for us, it's like a physical information application, transcripts, and a face story. And once we have all three of those components, it's about 2 weeks before you get your answer. So it's a pretty quick moving process for us.
So it sounds like there's two reviewers, the initial admissions counselor and then the director of admissions.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. So two sets of eyes on your application. All right.
So because we're a direct admit university, we do, our academic curriculum is rigorous. We want to make sure that students are prepared. So especially for our STEM programs, we look at the math and science background of our applicants more rigorously than our non-STEM applicants. We look for 4 years of math, 4 years of science. Pre-calculus is the absolute minimum math requirement because all of our STEM programs require students to take Calc 1 their first semester, no matter which program, unless you bring in advanced credit. So we like to see that students challenge themselves and take a higher level curriculum like dual enrollment or AP, because those are like indicators of success at our university. We do look at test scores pretty heavily as well. So especially for STEM students, we're looking hard at your math section SAT score and the science and math section in your ACT. We super score as well, so I always tell students, make sure that you send us all your scores, because those can impact the amount of scholarship awards that you get from us as well. And Bright Futures does as well, and we take Bright Futures. But I also look at, letters of recommendation, I look at essays, because those are optional for us, but all of my colleagues say it's definitely recommended. It shows levels of interest. It shows effort. It's always good, because we're a direct admit university, for students to get a letter of recommendation for someone who can speak to their ability to be successful in the major they're applying for. So let's say marine biology. A biology teacher is a good person because they can tell us how great at science you are. So yeah, we look at all that.
Perfect. Anything else to share?
So I'll add, our process is very simple as well. So firstly, the application goes to what's called an examiner, who just looks at the application for contents. And then it gets forwarded to someone like myself, a regional admissions counselor, who looks at the application for contents and actually digs a little bit deeper to see what the test scores are, math and English teacher recommendation. There's also what we call a candidate fitness assessment, which consists of various physical activities, because obviously you are going into the military eventually. So we'll review it for all of those things, and then it gets forwarded up to the Board of Admissions, and then the Board of Admissions will give a vote of up or down, and then the dean has the final say-so on that.
Perfect. So 4 sets of eyes, it sounds like, in your admission review. Okay. And then could you just give us a little bit of a timeline on when a candidate would begin the admissions process? Because it does kind of differ from other institutions being a service academy.
Right. So for us, the admissions or the application process is going to begin in April of your junior year. So you'll start the application at that point, and then you have up until January 31st to complete the application, but it is rolling admission, so if you get your application in sooner, you'll get a decision sooner. The board actually starts meeting in September of your senior year, so they're actually reviewing applications at this point. The final deadline to submit a new application is December 31st, and then to finish the application itself is January 31st of your senior year.
Perfect. And then if you all could add, Eddie, you've kind of mentioned that there's different application types at UCF. We learned that at the U.S. Naval Academy, there's a standard admission deadline. So at Taylor and FIT, could you guys just emphasize what your admissions deadlines are and just recap that?
Yeah, our deadlines are more for scholarship opportunities. We'll admit, we admitted a kid in August, 2 weeks before students arrived. So it's more for different scholarships, things of that nature, essays, scholarship, so that's where ours fall in, and those are usually mid-October.
Okay.
So our application, our university application, opens up in June for the next incoming class. So students have to wait till they're done and they have their grades on their transcripts after finishing their spring term in their junior year. We're rolling admissions, so we review applications all year long. But, it's always good to apply early, and specifically, we have a special opportunity for students in Florida who are the highest level of Bright Futures to get full tuition for 4 years. And that application deadline, you have to be admitted, and you have to do the FAFSA, you have to do the Florida financial aid application, and do that scholar application by February 1st. So it's important to apply early. The National Decision Day is on May 1st. We're kind of loose with that, especially, I don't know if any of you heard about the new FAFSA last year and everything got delayed. It was a lot. But so we're very flexible with that. The only thing we're not flexible for is our flight program, because we have capacity with our flight program. So those students have to confirm by May 1st. And if you're one of those awardees for the, it's called the Panther Distinguished Award, you have to confirm that by May 1st. But other than that, we don't have a deadline.
So then I think that maybe one place to camp out really quick would be any scholarship opportunities. So you've referenced a full ride, maybe Taylor, UCF, and the U.S. Naval Academy. Want to just talk about the scholarship offerings at each of your institution?
We offer a couple full rides based on GPA. So if you have a 3.75 and a minimum of a 1430 SAT, 32 ACT, or 98 CLT, you'll be invited to come to campus for a opportunity to interview for a full tuition scholarship. We gave out 4 of those last year. We also offer cultural diversity scholarships as well, different things of that nature. And then within there are smaller amounts within those processes as well.
What does it cost to go to the U.S. Naval Academy?
So if you gain appointment into the United States Naval Academy, it's 100% free. So in addition to that, we'll pay you. There's actually a $1,200 monthly stipend that'll cover your books, your uniforms, and anything else you might need as a student at the Naval Academy. So again, if you get admitted into the Naval Academy, 100% free, and we'll pay you.
Follow that, Eddie.
We are not free. But you can get money to actually come to UCF at the end of the day. Of course, we take that Florida Bright Futures, Florida prepaid. Typically, through our Office of Undergraduate Admissions, we actually are going to have our merit scholarships that are originally available for students when they first come in. Typically, that's going to be given as long as you apply before November 1st your senior year with your application, and then we'll let you know in early spring on that. For that, that's typically $6,000 to $42,000, so it can cover a lot of the tuition with it only being $6,000 for the year. But then outside of that, we do have our own scholarship database, which you can just look up UCF scholarships or A2O, which is Access to Opportunity. With that, we have scholarships going from our different colleges, our offices, and then our departments. But then we do have a couple of fun scholarships. So when I was a sophomore, I actually got a scholarship from being here in West Palm. And then I got one from the actual alumni group of West Palm for UCF students. And then outside of that, we do have opportunities for generally anything. So there's scholarships for your interest, your major, and then also a couple of scholarships based on the actual program that you're studying. So if you ever are interested in checking out any of the opportunities, please apply for a couple. Just look up Access to Opportunity UCF, and then it'll bring you to that database to check out any of those scholarships. The other thing I wanted to cover, scholarships at UCF do stack on top of each other. So if you have that Bright Futures and then you get a merit scholarship or any other scholarships at UCF, you can get those stacked on top to cover your tuition, your housing, your room, and then anything excess can get refunded to you the second week of each semester, so you can get money to come to us at the end of the day as well.
So we are a yellow ribbon friendly school. So if your parents have GI benefits, that will cover more than just full tuition. You get a meal plan, you get a living stipend, you get room and board and a book stipend. We have Army ROTC. That's also comparable to the GI Bill benefits. We have the Panther Distinguished Award for students that are the highest level of Bright Futures. But when students are admitted, based on their weighted GPA and their super scored test scores, our scholarships, which are renewable for 4 years as long as you maintain a 2.0, start from $12,000 all the way up to $24,000 a year. We also do stackable scholarship and grants in our financial aid packages. So we can stack Bright Futures on there. There's something called the EASE grant, Pell Grant. We have need-based aid from us. We have a couple different grants if you're like part of a FIRST Robotics, VEX Robotics, you're an Eagle Scout. So you can, when you're visiting the colleges and universities that you're interested in, ask about special scholarship and grant opportunities.
Yes, sorry. We also have merit-based scholarships. I was thinking the big ones. The merit-based as well as departmental and some of those as well. And our merits are, our top ones are required to have test scores. So you don't have to have a test score to get in, but they help with merit scholarships.
So I've learned 3 things so far that I want to point out to you guys. thing number one that I learned is that when you visit a college campus, you should ask to speak to your admissions rep, right? These folks want to get to know you. And then particularly for parents in the room, you should be, and students for this matter, but typically it's parents who are most concerned about cost, you should be looking into the financial aid website of each college that you're considering as a family to attend. And then there was another tidbit that you just said that I learned, but it escapes me now.
Is athletic scholarships?
Nope, it was not. It was not. So
sorry.
one term you threw out was the EASE grant. So the EASE grant, that's not what I learned, but I'll tell you about it just for a little bit, is applicable to any Florida private school. And as a resident of the state of Florida, you will automatically be considered for it and granted it if you're attending a Florida private institution. So it'll be included on your awards letter automatically. So if I think of the last thing, I'll let you know. I'm taking notes in my head too. All right, so let's move on. The next topic is leadership, extracurricular activities, and recommendations. So this is really focusing on how you're spending your free time outside of classes, students, and then how you're conducting yourself in the classroom for those recommendation letters. So out of curiosity, how does leadership factor into an admissions decision? How can a student clearly articulate that in their application? And then how does that weigh in regards to getting into your school? And then if we want to go down the route of maybe for scholarship opportunities.
Is this on? So I always tell students, like when you're filling out the Common App, there's going to be a section that says like awards, community service, anything you're engaged in. Don't leave that empty, because I'm looking at the academic background hard, but I also want to see that you've done other things and you engage in your community, because those kind of students are the ones that are successful at Florida Tech, that engage and they, go into leadership positions. And then, yes, for the Panther Distinguished Award, it is competitive. So the students that we consider are very high achieving students academically. So we're going to that resume, we're going to your application to look at what other things that you were involved in. So that's really, really important. And it does go into the admissions decision.
We are very relational in our application process and then the school in general. And so we want to know you, because that tells us a lot about you. What's important to you? What are you investing your time in? So yes, be involved with things, because it does stand out and it makes you memorable. Personally, I had 95 admits from my region, and I could probably name 40 of them off the top of my head right now, because they stood out for one reason or another. Whether it was helping with the youth group, or being involved with a mental health clinic volunteering, or leading a group starting a Christian group at their public high school, things of that nature. So being involved, and it doesn't matter what, to be honest with you. It could be theater, it could be basketball. It doesn't make a bit of difference, but be involved, get as much experience outside, and even outside your comfort zone as you possibly can.
Yeah, so definitely agree with all that. And for us specifically, we pride ourselves on being a leadership institution and developing leaders for the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps. So in our application process, there's a section dedicated specifically to extracurricular activities and things like that. So if you're the captain of a sports team or you're the leader of an extracurricular activity, that weighs heavy on us and on your application, and we take note of that. So we value leadership a lot, because one day when you graduate from our institution, you will be a leader in the United States military.
I'll also harp on all of those. For us, the leadership is going to be 20% of the actual decision for us. I will let you know we do have a couple of specialized college and programs that look heavily on your extracurricular and leadership. With that, that's going to be our Honors College, which is a supplemental college, a part of the university. And then we also do have our own Leader Scholar program, which is going to be the Lead Scholars Academy as well, which is a great program to get involved in for leaders on campus.
So that's a really good point. Does anybody else at their school have a honors program or honors college? Perfect. So that's one good thing to know. It's sometimes finding the right college fit, but then also particularly I think sometimes within our state institution system. They're really pretty large schools, and so it's a very good way to find a small community of like-minded, academically focused students within an honors college. Typically, there's perks that go along with the honors college. I know from what I've heard, you're getting to select your classes sooner than other students. You're getting to live with the folks that are studying in the same classes as you, and you're just getting more interaction with faculty. Is there anything else I'm missing?
Yeah, we actually offer a free international trip.
So there's that too.
We have a lot of exclusive honors scholarship, honors college scholarships. So I always recommend always submitting that application for them, and you submit that after you apply to university.
We give a special distinction on your diploma. There's additional research opportunities. You're doing honors level classes. There's professional workshops. There's specific recruiting events, and there are some additional grants available for the honors college.
Perfect. So then in regards to how students are choosing to spend their free time, you kind of talked about this a little bit, but does any one thing look better than any other thing?
For us specifically, any type of involvement outside of the classroom is important and perfect for us. It can be leadership or just being involved in a club for a couple of years. We're just looking for students that have academic passion, but then also extracurricular passion in the community as well.
I would agree with that. Like students, that have a great academic background are great, but we want to see how you engage in your community, because again, that shows us that leadership quality that our students that are successful have. So, it's important to be involved in your community. We at Florida Tech do a lot of community efforts. There's a new aquarium opening up right by the Brevard Zoo where our students are doing conservation research. We have a new STEM initiative where a lot of our students are doing this like STEM tutoring program for some of the local schools. So yeah, we like to see that. Community engagement is good.
One of our goals and mission as a university is to raise up student leaders for Christ. And that's really, and I think that just kind of speaks volume, and it's very literal. So we love the kids who are, you're doing the mission trips, you're volunteering in places that you're stretching your comfort zone, you're helping with the kids ministry in church, things of that nature. And it makes a difference because it's an element of, no, I'm humbling myself to serve, but also having the opportunity to lead in a servant capacity, which is really cool.
Great. All right, so there's a term that gets tossed around in college admissions that I've heard of. It's called intellectual curiosity. So how does a student demonstrate that they are intellectually curious? Maybe they're really strong within STEM, but they actually have a book list that leans towards more classic literature. Maybe are there some examples of times where a student has demonstrated intellectual curiosity? How would that factor into the admissions review?
I'll say definitely for us, we have a lot of students that have initiative when they come to university. So in the last applicant pool, we actually had a couple of students that ran nonprofits and created them in high school. Just showing some type of ambition and passion is definitely what we're looking for. But definitely that sets you apart is having that extra added part. So those are people who start new businesses. Those are people who give back to their community and have some type of leadership experience with it as well.
As a STEM university that specializes in research, and students get to participate in research with their professors. We've had students that have been published at the undergraduate level, but when I'm talking to high schoolers, I'm like, do you have questions about how the world works around you? And I get to do these regional science fairs in my county, and I meet a lot of intellectually curious students, and that really goes a long way because that's how we advance in our university. This student, she won the last 2 years she won, there's a scholar award, it's called the Astronaut Scholar Award. She won the last 2 years in a row. She's only one of 53 students in our country. And her team had this project where it was funded by Heinz Ketchup, I call it their backup plan, where we have a Mars lab garden on campus in our space science building, and she got to grow tomatoes in Mars-like atmospheric conditions. But yeah, on the road I talk to a lot of students, and I like to hear that they're intellectually curious.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So I remember the other tidbit that was something that you should stick in your back pocket. Eddie said it, and I believe you said it. You have optional pieces of your application. Optional actually means required. All right? So in college admissions, if it's optional, do it, because behind those closed doors, when they're making a decision, it articulates to them that you care enough to put the effort in and go the extra mile. And if two applicants are sitting side by side with the same profile and you have done the extra work that wasn't required of you, I don't know, guys, which one are you going to pick? Probably that one. Yeah. So optional means required. That was it. Okay, that was very loud, sorry. So then the next piece that we're gonna talk about is recommendation letters. Just talk through how they factor into your application.
So for the general application into university, we do not accept letters of references or recommendation. But if you happen to get denied from the university and want a petition, then we'll accept those letters of reference. Outside of that, if you're applying for the Lead Scholars Academy or then the Honors College, they do take letters of reference with their actual application. So at least ask your faculty members and your teachers for those letters for those programs.
For us, we do require a math teacher letter of recommendation and an English teacher letter of recommendation. And we look at those very intently. Because what your teachers are saying about you reflects on your character, because they spend a lot of time with you day to day. We've had candidates, where their teachers have said something negative about them, and I won't say it denied them admission into the Naval Academy, but we do look at those things. They are important. It's not something that we just brush to the side. And then there are optional letters of recommendations from other sources as well that we take into account.
We don't take letters of recommendation. We use Christian character references. So, and we don't necessarily always call them, but we do ask that you send in whether it's a youth pastor or a teacher if you're at a Christian school.
Wonderful.
Again, so I always recommend students get a letter of recommendation from somebody that can speak to their ability to be, successful in the program. I would say it helps when I have borderline students, meaning like, oh, you've got good grades, except you got 1D in pre-calculus in your junior year. And then, a student I had, and I'm like, how? Like, everything else is good test scores, but their professor in their letter of teacher, in their letter of recommendation said that their grandmother passed away that month or something, and they had just a rough semester. So, and I admitted them. So, that can factor in too.
Yeah, so that contextual framework is something that can come through in a recommendation letter. And then we also are coaching students if there was an extenuating life circumstance or something that really impacted their academic performance. We'll coach them to include that in the additional information section of the Common App. That just provides context to the reviewer beyond what they're seeing on the transcript. So if that does apply, have them work with myself or Mrs. Dufresne, and we can clear and concisely have them explain that. So now we're going to shift gears back to grades and test scores, because I think we've already visited those things, but let's hammer into them. All right, so how important are grades? Eddie, I think you said 80%?
80% of the decision is your grades. This is both your dual enrollment classes and your high school classes. I cannot harp on enough not only having a great GPA, but also taking rigorous coursework. Rigorous for us is AP, ACE, IB, dual enrollment classes. They are all viewed the same for us. So submitting any type of rigorous materials will then boost your GPA. And then for us specifically, we recalculate your actual GPA onto a 5-point scale. And we're only looking at your academic core classes. So your math, your sciences, your social sciences, and your foreign language and English. But outside of that, grades heavily make the decision for us. And then the rest is 20%.
Yeah, so for us, grades are extremely important. While we don't have a minimum GPA requirement, we do recommend that you be in the top 20% of your class, because that demonstrates to us that you can handle a large workload. And then also, like Eddie was saying, we need you to be taking the AP classes, the honors classes, whatever you can get into. And again, that demonstrates that you can handle more on your plate, because at the Naval Academy, there is going to be a lot on your plate, and you're going to have to balance military lifestyle and an academic workload. So preparing yourself in high school will only help you.
Grades matter for making an easy acceptance, to be frank. We do take kids with lower GPAs. Full disclosure, I was one of those. But we have a program we call Transition to College. And so it's just you have to take an extra class or two your first semester, kind of like, okay, let's make sure you are ready to go. You're doing a couple of hours of study table a week, things of that nature to kind of help you boost and push into college. So it's not necessarily a deal breaker. It just makes life a lot easier on all fronts.
So yeah, grades are really important. You know, more so, especially your senior and junior year, we want to see you finish strong. Definitely looking at those math and science grades for any of our STEM programs. Another thing is because that factors into the Merit Scholarship Award amount. We also calculate on a 5.0 scale. If you're doing dual enrollment or AP classes, those are weighed on a heavier scale. The other half is your super scored test scores. So again, like our scholarships range from $12,000 per year to $24,000 per year. So that could mean a lot of money per year that you'd be losing out on if you didn't have great grades. But also, I had another point. I lost it, sorry.
The floor is yours if it comes back, because I know how that feels.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was one point that I was going to make. It escaped me too. So we'll move on to the next question, and I bet it'll come back to both of us. All right, so how important is it to then increase your rigor each year? So, I know what I was going to say. Okay, perfect. We're all over the place now. You go first.
So you have to maintain a 2.0 for your Merit Scholarship to renew every year. We don't want you to fail out and lose your scholarships because you're not going to graduate. So yeah, that's, how you perform in high school is a good indicator of how you'll perform with us.
Perfect. So now let's talk about rigor. So should you be advancing your schedule, which means taking more elevated class, jumping from regular to honors, honors to dual enrollment to advanced placement as you move through high school?
For us specifically, my best recommendation, try to get a couple of honors classes if you have the regular versions to take the honors, because with us, it'll boost your GPA from a 4.0 to a 4.5 automatically. Outside of that, in terms of the actual rigor of your classes every year, we look actually overall at your tuition, or not tuition, but actually at your coursework and curriculum. So with it, we're looking at your middle school, if you've done any foreign language, all the way to high school for junior year. And then once you come to the spring term, we'll then review your first semester of senior year. With that, we do look for rigor in the courses you've taken. So if you went from APs your first 2 years to then drop to regular classes your junior year, that is going to actually affect your application and then lower your GPA overall. With it, I will say anyone with a high GPA should always apply early in our timeline, because just like all the other universities, we do our merit scholarships typically on the rigor of your courses and then also the GPA that you come in with.
Perfect.
For us, again, we do look for rigor, so AP and honors courses, as well as curriculum. So we're looking for pre-calculus or calculus in terms of math, physics, and chemistry, since we are a STEM-based institution. So we're looking for all of that.
We offer advanced credit for AP and dual enrollment. So my understanding is there's dual enrollment through Palm Beach Atlantic University, which we do accept credits from there, C's or higher. I always tell students to reach out to me or the South Florida admission counselor, because we can tell you what classes will transfer in for what major, as well as AP. You can get advanced credit, like for example with calculus, like AB or BC. If you get a 4 or higher, that can come in as Calc 1 and Calc 2 credit. So yeah, it's important. Our programs are rigorous, so we want to see that you're taking a challenging course load and doing well.
Wonderful. And then another takeaway that I heard is senior year grades actually count, right? So finish strong is the tagline. All right, so now we're going to just spend the next few minutes talking about college essays. This is typically a component of a college application. So I wanted to ask you, do you really read them?
For us, we do read the essays. I would say our essays are optional, but like we discussed here earlier, highly recommended. Highly. But outside of that, typically the essays are a great way to tell us a little bit more besides your academic credentials. For me specifically, when looking at a student's application, I look at their actual GPA test scores first, and then I read their essays just to give me an informed decision of who they are outside of those numbers. For a majority of our counselors, we are able to actually fight for our students that are in our counties and districts. So if we do have a little bit additional information to provide when we speak up to the committee or then the director, it will help with the application at the end of the day with decisions.
Yeah, I'd say for us, we absolutely read essays. It's required in our application. There is a personal statement requirement. So of course, we're going to read it and read it for its contents. And it's a great way for us to learn more about you, your background, what you're interested in. I know we can get some of the hardcore statistics from the rest of your application, but the personal statement is a little bit more personal, and it allows us to see exactly who you are and kind of what your character and what you're thinking at that time. So we absolutely read them to answer the question.
We do not have them, actually. We do faith stories. So we want to know the story of you and Jesus. And the majority of those faith stories are either in person or over the phone. And it's that personal touch that we really value. Essays, we get them, we look at them and kind of like, okay, that's great. And then, but also we want to see how it ties into your faith story as well.
So essays are optional, but again, as we've all said, they're definitely recommended. It's another tool that we use to learn more about you and why you'd be a good fit at the university. I always tell students to make sure that you put another set of eyes on your essay, like an English teacher or a parent, to get some good feedback. Check your grammar, but I also tell students to be honest. Don't just tell me what you think I want to hear. Just tell me about you and just be honest with your essay. And if you use the Common App, there's this application called the Common App that you can use to apply to multiple universities. Make sure that if there's one university that's your favorite, you don't indicate that on your essay. Yeah. It took me, my one colleague who's been there for 30 years, he's awesome, his name's Bob, but he would always tell us, you're gonna run into that day where you're gonna see another school's name on the student's essay. It took 1.5 years for me. It was Florida State. But so if you do that, that essay will go out to all the universities that you put on the Common App. So that's just something to be mindful of.
It doesn't happen often, but when it does. Yeah. All right. So we want to take a minute to open up the floor for questions to you all. So I am going to cue our wonderful academic prefects to go ahead and get questions, or if you want to just raise your hand, I'll come around with a mic, and then we will hear your question, and the panelists can address it. So this is your time to ask any questions that you have. This might be, on record, the quietest group that we've had. All right.
For the Naval Academy, how many new recruits you take every year?
Each year, our plebe or freshman class is around 1,000. So we're taking about 1,000 each year.
Thank you.
All right, now the hands are going good.
This is for FIT. If the parents attended FIT for 5 years, would that make a difference?
We have a $2,500 per year legacy grant, so make sure they put that on their application.
Okay.
And it's nice to meet you.
Well, it should be in your records, right? It should be somewhere in the computer on your record.
Well, the student has to indicate that on their application. There is a question, has your parent attended Florida Tech on either application? So just make sure they check it off, because it'll go into our financial aid system to add that grant onto their financial aid.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question is for the rep from FIT. You mentioned that you do accept Bright Futures. How do you integrate Florida Prepaid into your finances?
We take Florida Prepaid. So it works differently at a private university. You know, it's based on the plan that you get. It's a dollar for dollar exchange. So whatever you invested into it, whatever's in your statement, you can apply to Florida Tech. It doesn't count, like when you're doing the FAFSA, it doesn't count as like an asset. It's just like maybe like a debit card. And you can there's 2 ways you can apply it. You can do restricted funding, where it's only a certain amount per year that you want applied to tuition cost, or you can do unrestricted, where you just use it up till it's gone. But I mean, as far as Bright Futures, so Bright Futures is part of the Florida Student Scholarship and Grant Program, and they pay a certain dollar amount per credit hour. So it's actually, the high level of Bright Futures is capped at the public Florida institution rate, which is $212 per credit hour. So our students take between 12 to 19 credits per semester. So it's roughly around $6,330 per year, but it can be a little more than that if they take more classes. We have a flat fee for tuition, so it costs them the same amount to take 12 or 19 or 12 between 12 to 19 credits. So, but that can add on with the Merit Scholarship, that can tack on with the EASE grant or any need-based aid you're eligible for. So, our average, well, like for an engineering program, it's like $45 a year, but if you get the highest level scholarship, which is $24,000 per year, you add Bright Futures on, then you add the EASE grant, you're sitting at about $32,000, but we look for other aid too. And our need-based aid is based on how much we cost. So I've definitely seen where lots of students didn't get Pell Grant, but they got need-based aid from us because we cost more than, you know, a public university. So, and again, we have that Panther Distinguished Award opportunity where if you're one of the awardees, it will fill between your scholarship and grant package. If there's any gaps to meet full tuition, it will increase your Merit Scholarship to reach full tuition for 4 years between scholarships and grants.
Thanks. So this is, I think, for the three of you, because the Naval Academy doesn't cost anything. You know, as this is my second time through this with my wife, you know, and I think the biggest thing that everybody here is thinking is, you know, it's an investment, right? This is obviously an investment. What's the ROI going to be? First question is, you know, how much the fast-moving, rapid technology of the world, you know, how relevant will the degrees be? Obviously, is the first question. But the second question is for job placement. So, you know, someone comes to your school, they'll do the whole degree. You know, what is the percentage of job placement to help that student get to where they need to go? And last question is connection. So for instance, I know that you said you guys were in the aerospace industry, connected with NASA. I looked in the guide, you know, you guys are connected with SpaceX. How hard do you guys work to maintain those connections with those companies that are moving the ball forward and building those connections for placement for the student?
That's a great question. So the placement rating, a lot of people don't know what that is. I'm very impressed by your question. So the national placement rating is the percentage of students who get their bachelor's degree, they go on to find a job within their field within 6 months, or they go on to grad school within 6 months. So the national percentage is 56%. At Florida Tech, we went up a percent last year. We're at 96%. Part of that is there are internships built into our university for certain programs. NASA, we actually have facilities at NASA. L3 Harris owns our computer science building. Northrop Grumman's the one that hosts our fair. So we have 7 career fairs a year, and they send our alumni at all these big tech companies that come to recruit our students. But again, our students and our professors are either working and doing research in their field, or they're doing research in their field, and these companies come to our professors to recruit students. But our career services department does a really good job with resume building, mock interviews, and hosting those career fairs. And we have partnerships with the county, you know, for direct job placement. So we're really good at that.
So we don't have anything quite that cool. Okay. We are actually at 98%. And we are very proud of that. That is a big thing for us because we are more expensive. And being a private college, we are $50,000. And so it's like, holy cow, that's a big number. But that gets knocked down pretty quick with scholarships and things of that nature. But no, similar to Matilda is, you know, a lot of relationships within with other companies, internships, and even grad schools. We have a lot of grad schools that we have deals with as far as like, hey, we're going to hold two spots for you because we know your school. We want your kids here. We know the quality of student they get when they come through Taylor. Like, oh, that's a Taylor kid. 100%, we want them in here. So it's kind of crazy how it works out sometimes, but it's a big deal. I agree, and it is no small order to send your kid to college. But you know, there are strong opportunities and strong universities out there who do push and make sure that the kids and take that investment very seriously and make sure your kids are taken care of.
So for me, I'll answer it a little bit differently. So at the university, we do it by college. Our smallest college typically has around 80% retention for then getting full-time jobs after, and that's going to be our Rosen Hospitality. Typically, our largest school is going to be that engineering college, and our smallest is Rosen. Those are going to be the best examples for actual job internships and then full-time job placements. With the Rosen campus for hospitality, we actually do 3 job placements before you graduate. So before you graduate with 3 full years of work experience, either as a full-time or part-time student in the different industries that we have on campus. Our largest partnerships in terms of internships and then full job placements are going to be NASA for engineering, L3 Harris, and then Duke Energy also have buildings on campus. Typically with engineering, I always recommend trying to get those internships sophomore year with us, and then we actually have our own career and internship fairs every semester just for engineering students. Outside of that, at the university, we have a whole office dedicated to internship coordinating, and then in every one of our actual major departments, we actually have an internship coordinator to help find industry partners for you. So me as an undergrad, I was a hospitality student. We actually brought Disney Universal onto campus, but then we actually had internship coordinators that gave us weekly opportunities, and then we also do mock interviews on campus to then get those students prepared before they leave us as well. Lastly, the other thing is we have so many partners on and off campus, with us being a large research institution for anyone STEM related, so nursing, engineering, biology. Right off of campus, we actually have around a $13 billion industry on Research Parkway, which is 2 minutes off of UCF campus. Right there, we have Boeing Industries, we have augmented reality, AI, and then we also have a couple of other energy plants. Besides that, we do bring a lot of big names onto campus, so if students do not want to reach out or head to those campus partners, we do bring them onto campus as well. So typically NASA is our largest partner just because we work created for them, and then we also do have 30% of their employees being UCF alumni, so we keep that partnership every year.
Perfect. So another question that we had is, do you weight advanced placement or dual enrollment coursework differently, or is it weighted the same when you recalculate a GPA?
For us specifically, both AP, dual enrollment, IB, or ACE classes are all going to be on the same scale of a 5. My best recommendation is try to take some classes in both if you have the option. The only difference on our side is that when coming in with those AP credits, it depends on the score that you're earning is going to give you those class placements. So typically we take anything higher than a 3. A 3 would give you 1 class, a 4 or 5 gives you 2 classes. But then with that, if you are studying things such as engineering, nursing, biology, if you take the AP exam for that specialization, we will still recommend always to retake the entry-level course for that, just because any of your upper division elective courses or classes will use the information in those general classes, so general biology, calculus, and such as well. But in terms of the class placement, they're the exact same weight for admission into University of a 5.
Ours are weighted the same as well. I don't know if the question was pointed at me, but ours are weighted the same as well. We do value AP classes, though, that goes into account sort of in the decision, but it's weighted not necessarily any differently than any other classes, but we do value it.
So, yeah, AP, dual enrollment, those are both weighted on a 5.0 scale. Honors classes are weighted on a 4.5 scale. Again, it impacts scholarship amounts, and we just like to see you take a rigorous course load. 4s and 5s will get you credit on the math and science AP exams, and then 3s or higher on like English and humanities exams will get you course credit.
For UCF specifically, this may be a silly question, but if you aren't necessarily enrolling in like one of the top majors I see here, does that increase your chances of being accepted? Like, I know back in my day, dinosaur day, they would only accept certain amount of people per major, if that makes sense. Is it still done that way, or is it different now?
At the moment, we actually changed away from that. So when I was applying, a decade ago. It was based
You're
on
really
what,
young.
Yeah, oh, thank you. It was based on the actual major you selected. So we were major for specific into entry. Now we are major blind. So if you're applying as an undecided student or engineering or theater student, it is going to be the same criteria that we're looking for. So you can apply at any major you want. Also, with the way that we do our majors, you're able to change them up until the end of your sophomore year by yourself. And then junior year, we do normally advise against it, but you can reach out to an advisor to also change your major. So major does not play a role in the admissions process into university nowadays.
Would that be all Florida schools, or do you not have that specific information?
I sadly do not have that information. Some of them still do it by the actual majors because they look at the cohort, but us at the university, since we moved away and we're now rolling admissions, we typically don't look too much on the actual major you're studying.
Okay, for the sake of time, sir, this is going to be the last question, so no pressure.
All right. I'll make it short. Mine is for the Naval Academy. So upon graduation or commissioning from the Naval Academy, what is the service requirement upon graduation?
So generally the service obligation is going to be 5 years. Now there are different communities which you can commission into. So for surface warfare, which is what I did, the commitment is 5 years. But for aviation, so fighter pilots or helicopter pilots, that's going to be a 10-year service requirement. And then if you've ever seen Top Gun, the co-pilot that's a separate, you're not actually flying the plane, you're just working the weapons and the radars. That obligation is going to be 8 years. For submariners, it's 5 years again. And then for the Marine Corps, it's 5 years as well. So a lot of different, time commitments, just varies on which community you do go into.
Wonderful. So I want to give this opportunity to y'all to thank our panelists for their time, their energy, their expertise. I feel like based on that round of applause, this event did not disappoint. So at this time, you are welcome to dismiss. These fine ladies and gentlemen will stick around if you wanted to introduce yourself individually or answer any questions for about the next 15 minutes. Thank you all for coming.